It's led to more than 30 arrests in the last week, and more are expected. Authorities say it's a blow to the Blood Family Mafia, a street gang believed to be behind a string of violent.
Top of their list is Dave Pic-Turmel, suspected leader of the Blood Family Mafia, BFM, a gang in Quebec fighting a battle against the Hells Angels for the control of the drug trade.
The Hells Angels have ruled Canada since the First Bikers' War, enforcing their laws throughout, especially in the Quebec province. But what happens when a young and violent new gang refuses to play by the rules of the land and wants control? With the alleged support of other street gang leaders, they attack the Hells Angels and their associates, sending a clear message: we want war. Seeing two bounties placed on the vicious BFM leader's head as he fled to Portugal, where he leads in the shadows and became one of Canada's most wanted.
Authorities listed their fugitives.
Dave Pic-Turmel, notre nouveau numéro 1.
Top of their list is Dave Pic-Turmel.
With local artists picking sides, the war between the Hells Angels and BF have allegedly landed on their doorsteps. Police exuding pressure, but it seems like it's only on the smaller street gangs, which makes some wonder, do the Hells Angels have the police in their back pocket? In this video, we dive into the turf war between the Hells Angels and the BFM, Blood Family Mafia. What caused this bloody war and how did we get here? Let's go. Canada is the second largest country in the world. From sea to sea and ice to ice, it's considered the coldest country in the world. According to Fraser Institute, the crime rate in Canada has been rising faster than that of the United States.
A new study from the Fraser Institute has shown that that violent and property crime rates in Canada are exceeding those in the United States.
With a relatively low population of 40 million people, Canada is divided into 10 provinces. With violent crimes up to 50%, the underworld of organized crime was ruled by the Risotto Italian family leading the way, followed by the Hells Angels and lower street gangs.
Vito Rizzuto was the kind of guy to realize that he didn't need any war with nobody. And he was trying to make sure that everybody gets his fair share of the market.
Ever since the death of Risotto, things have shifted and the battle for power in Canada begun. Now, lower street gangs have strong desires to escape from the shadows of the Hells Angels and fight for a strong control in Quebec, believing if they win this territory, they can expand throughout other regions in Canada.
Our vacuum caused by the death of Vito Rizzuto continues to provoke violence among the various factions of what was once the most powerful mafia family in Canada.
For the younger generation who may not be aware, the Hells Angel Motorcycle Club was founded in 1948 in Fontana, California, by a group of World War II veterans. Initially formed as a social club for motorcycle enthusiasts, it grew into a global organization known for its outlaw reputation. So, you might be wondering, how did a gang founded in California cross the border into Canada? Let me take you back. In the mid to late 1960s, the Outlaws, a rival to the US-based Hells Angels, began expanding their reach into Canada. They forged a pivotal alliance with the Satan's Choice, a prominent bikers gang based in Windsor, Ontario, just across the border from Detroit, Michigan, an outlaw stronghold. At the time, according to reports, Satan's Choice supplied drugs like methamphetamine exclusively to the Outlaws. In return, the Outlaws funneled money and guns across the border to their Canadian counterparts. This growing partnership poses a serious threat to the Hells Angels' dominance in the bikers' world. The expansion of the Outlaws into Canadian territory moved north, combined with their takeover of Satan's Choice, created a major dilemma for the Hells Angels, which got them to tanking. What can we do to take advantage of this newfound market? There was only one answer: to stop the Outlaws. They had no choice but to establish a presence in Canada to prevent losing control of this lucrative territory. But how? To counter the Outlaws, the Hells Angels aligned themselves with a French-Canadian biker gang known as the Popeyes. This strategic partnership culminated in December 1977 when the Popeyes officially patched over to become part of the Hells Angels. Monsieur Bouteau, a former Popeyes member, quickly rose to prominence and became the national president of the Hells Angels. Under his leadership, the conflict between the outlaws intensified. It escalated quite rapidly. Within 2 months, 3 outlaws were and they eventually won the war in 1984. They reigned supreme once again in the Quebec Bikers War, which ended in 2004.
The Biker War was about to claim its first civilian casualty here in the heart of a residential East End Montreal neighborhood. A biker bomb ripped apart a Jeep, and it didn't just claim the life of the Rock Machine member behind the wheel, it also killed an 11-year-old boy, Daniel Desrochers. Hundreds of people, many who never even knew the boy, showed up at his funeral. His grieving mother's loss became their loss, and the biker war became their war. And now, more than ever, people wanted it stopped. A posse of protesters even surrounded one of the bikers' bunkers.
Enough is enough, and we want them out of the city.
Their message was blunt: get the hells out of here.
During this war, in 1996, the man who will challenge them for their throne was born. Dave Pic Tumel. Raised in the tranquil town of Lévis, Quebec, on the south shore of Quebec City, Tumel's early life appeared far removed from the chaos of Canada's biker wars. His family provided a stable and supportive environment, yet his behavior hinted at a troubling path ahead. From a young age, Dave had a strong admiration for gangster characters like Scarface, El Chapo, and gangster rappers. This quickly showed in his attitude. Tumel's defiance marked the start of a difficult youth. The turning point came on his 18th birthday in 2014. Tumel made a dramatic entrance at Bar Le Zanti, accompanied by nearly 300 people. His unruly behavior led to an altercation in a parking lot, during which he injured 2 people, stabbing one on the side with a shank, earning him the name from there on out as Pic, which means shank in French. Initially charged with attempted murder, he later pled guilty to lesser charges and served a 22-month sentence. But as a young man, this jail time only fueled his desire for more control to exert pressure through violence. Following his release, Tumel quickly immersed himself in the criminal underworld. He began his small-scale drug dealing, but soon climbed the ranks. His operation expanded with connection to prominent figures, including Mathieu Pelletier, son of former Hells Angel president, unaware of the danger this young man will bring to their empire. Fast forward to 2018, the Hells Angels were in easy street and became more mainstream in Canada, with the hopes of rebranding to evade police scrutiny, with top artists like Drake endorsing their motorcycle gang, wearing their jackets, and shouting them out on his global hit song, God's Plan, rapping, 81, they bring the crashes to the party, a reference to the alternative name of Hells Angels known as 81. But Drake received backlash for his support of the gang.
I don't think anybody should be going and buying, Hells Angel attire and wearing it.
So what about the Toronto Raptors global ambassador who holds a key to the Six?
So wear what you want to wear, still listen to music, still support you, just don't do anything wrong.
The hip-hop superstar is seen in this Instagram picture sporting a hoodie with Toronto emblazoned across the front above a logo with the slogan "Support Downtown Big Red Machine" and the number 81.
Meanwhile, little by little, bolstered by his aggressive tactics and recruitment strategy, Tumel's influence grew and wanted his presence felt in the world, and he appeared in Montreal rappers' music video, flashing their BMF chains and money. This only puts him more on the police radar. In no time, in 2019, he was arrested in Montreal for possession of illegal firearms and was sentenced to 12 months in prison. However, this only solidified his street cred in the underworld of organized crime. While in prison, he plotted on how he will dominate the underworld, and upon his release, Turmel emerged as the leader of the Blood Family Mafia, alongside his childhood friend, with one goal in mind: dominate by any means necessary. As a result, Turmel made a lot of enemies, but he knew how to align himself with those with common interests. L. Boudon, 35 years old, on the list of Canada's most wanted. A former tax collector for the Hells Angels, he turned his back on them. With so much information on his back pocket, knowing the who's who within the Hells Angels and their associates, he strikes. But according to reports, these actions fall in line with the plans that Turmel has. So far, you might be wondering, why did the war between BFM and the Hells Angels start? After surviving multiple wars, owning the port of Montreal, the Hells Angels monopolized organized across Canada, taking less risk and reaping profits from street gangs selling on their turfs. During this time, the Hells Angels had no significant opposition. According to reports, in Ontario, you had the Hells Angels and the people the Hells Angels let exist. They either worked with you or they didn't care about you. They leased their territory to smaller street gangs with a 10% mandatory tax to sell drugs. No one dare say no to this demand. But what happens when a more young and violent gang wants to keep 100% of their profits?
Yeah, something like that. What you came over there, threaten me or something? Not at all, player. Beans know this your little neighborhood. We came up with a peaceful solution for all of us to eat. What's that? You keep your own connects, you make your own moves, but you break us off 10% of everything you make. Me break y'all off 10% of what I make? Tell Beans I said suck my Oh, that's your word? That's my word.
After surviving many years in prison for their involvement in the Bikers' War in Quebec, the old and frail members of the Hells Angel will now be on the receiving end of attacks after a fatal error. March 2023, Dave Turmel found a tracking device under his car. Who will want to know the whereabouts of Turmel and why? Dave was not waiting for the answer. Retaliation was imminent. In March of 2023, Hells Angels member Mathieu Pelletier's residence was shot at. Soul's MC member and Fort Furier car was set on fire. And within the same time, 3 businesses relating to the Hells Angels were burnt down. November 27, 2023, just when the Hells Angels thought the attacks were simmering down, things took a fatal turn.
The breaking point came in the village of Saint-Malachie, Quebec, last weekend. 3 men with ties to the Hells Angels were, according to reports, taken hostage and tortured. One of the men escaped, killed the captor who was watching him, and went to a nearby home to call police. Just 3 days later, the gang is believed to have kidnapped another man linked to the Hells Angels. He was reported missing in Saguenay, Quebec, and then dropped off hundreds of kilometers away. The man was found on the streets of Montreal. Police say he didn't cooperate with them and had been mutilated. There are reports one of his toes and a finger had been cut off.
Ces techniques-là, c'est des techniques de guérilla.
Morani says the BFM is borrowing tactics from drug cartels and street gangs in Central America. Turmel and his gang are trying to scare people from fighting against them and to scare people away from working with the Hells. She also says for weeks the Hells Angels were actually in contact with police, warning them to act. Otherwise, Hells from other cities would move in and the situation would degenerate.
These actions gave the Hells Angels a dilemma. What should they do? Go to war, risk being the crosshair of the police, or do nothing and lose this war that will have a real impact on the grounds? A battle not fought against your enemy is a battle won by the enemy. An influential member of the Hells Angels of Quebec chapter since 1998 went to Europe to make peace with the leader of BFM. According to sources, the bikers offered included control of drug markets in the areas of Charlesbourg, a district of Quebec City, and the territory of Lévis on the South Shore, and most importantly, no more taxes. Now, why would the Hells Angels break their own law for BFM? According to reports, it was said that Pique laughed at his face and advised him to leave Portugal immediately before he left in pieces. Shortly after his return to Quebec, Auger escaped a kidnapping attempt which was said to be as a result of BFM. This was nothing compared to the sinister acts
100 kilometers north of Quebec City, was found right here in Montreal's Rosemont overnight with his finger and toe cut off after a possible kidnapping linked to drug trafficking. This comes amid increased violence related to street gangs in the province, particularly the Quebec City and Montreal regions.
Ce genre de torture-là.
Normally, gangs don't torture like this, severing body parts. It's not very frequent in Quebec, but we see with some of the street gangs in Quebec City, that's what they do.
In 2008, some Hells Angels were murdered due to their drug addiction and recurrent issues with the police. The Hells Angels believed if they wanted to become untouchable, believing this was necessary to evade police scrutiny. Knowing this, Turmel recruited Vince Bergeron, son of an ex-member who was murdered during this purge. Knowing his reputation, Turmel knew he would want to avenge the death of his father. In December of 2023, Vince, along with 2 others, were on their way to commit murder of Hells Angels. During this time, the police arrested those 3 individuals and charged them with attempted murder and possession of firearms. But nothing will prepare the police of what will happen next. To exert more pressure, Turmel resorted to tactics believed to be that of the Mexican cartel. In February 2024, members of the BFM subjected their captives to days of brutal torture, later filmed and sharing parts of the ordeal on social media. However, one of the bikers managed to free himself and killing one of the guards assigned to watch them. With attacks such as this, the Hells Angels have allegedly placed a hit on Peak's head worth around $500,000.
City under the leadership of David Ice Pick Turmel. Ice Pick is, right now, he's in Europe on the run from the Hells Angels with a $500,000 bounty on his head that's open to any European chapter of the Hells Angels or anybody else that finds it.
According to reports, the Hells Angels have reportedly warned the police of possible painful events that might occur if the police does not intervene. Project Malsain. Receiving those details, police clamped down on the Lower Street gang.
It's led to more than 30 arrests in the last week, and more are expected. Authorities say it's a blow to the Blood Family Mafia, a street gang believed to be behind a string of violent kidnappings. Mike Armstrong is in Quebec City with what police have revealed. Mike.
Well, Donna, these are charge sheets for some of the people arrested over the last week in this region. Almost all of them members of the same street gang. Now, police are hesitant to talk about the Blood Family Mafia specifically, but at a press conference at provincial police headquarters this morning, they did make it clear why they deployed hundreds of officers in recent days and raided 40 different locations.
Well, a lot of these arrests are linked directly to the events that happened last week.
There were 2 very violent incidents. One was at this home south of Quebec City. 3 men with links to the Hells Angels were kidnapped and tortured. The other incident was also the kidnapping of a man with links to the Hells. He was dropped off on the streets of Montreal after being tortured and mutilated. According to sources, the BFM gang is led by Dave Turmel. He's gone after the Hells after refusing to pay a 10% tax on drug sales in Hells-controlled territory. Turmel is believed to be right now hiding out in Europe.
The suspects that we're looking for that are not in Quebec, we're working with different authorities. I'm not going to go into too much detail.
In a new operation brought by the police, known as Project Malsain, the operation aimed to tackle drug trafficking in the nation's capital. These operations led to the arrest of Turmel's right-hand man in Portugal, Rubens Dennis. This saw the arrest of 36 Blood Family Mafia members being arrested through the efforts of Project Scandale, along with 2 retired lieutenants arrested. Despite this pressure from the police, the BFM leader remains at large, and recently the police have added his name to the most wanted man in Canada. With the police pressure on small gangs who are knowingly paying 10% tax to the Hells Angels, One might wonder, why isn't the police attacking the problem at its root? History proves that the police often works with the Hells Angels. It wouldn't be a surprise if history is repeating itself, but we'll let you decide. Alright guys, thank you for watching this video. If you made it this far and you like what you saw, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already done so for more documentaries. See you on the next one.